Go home, Nimrata. Nobody wants you. You're an anchor baby who exists solely to undermine the country and destroy it from within. You're human garbage, Nimrata. No one needs you. No one's going to be voting for you. You exist solely to usurp power from us, the people. Your entire presidential campaign, it's predicated on stealing the nomination away from Trump in opposition to the will of the people. Everyone knows that you're running on the vain hope that one of these Democratic parties' endless legal attacks against Trump is going to stick, and that the Republican Party is going to dump him off the ballot. That way you can come in at the last moment of a brokered convention and steal it away from the will of the people. Because technically you would have ran, and technically you would have came in second place with the amount of delegates, even if you lost every single state. Your entire strategy depends upon theft and subterfuge. And as we saw in New Hampshire, a main key plaque of your strategy is depending upon Democrats to vote for you against Trump in an open primary. And while I may have my disagreements with Trump's brand of conservatism and think it's not hard enough, everyone knows you're deceitful and cowardly. You are acting on behalf of money powers to try and put the genie of populism back in the bottle. And the only way that you can do that on behalf of those oligarchs is to use dirty and deceitful tactics, which are in firm opposition to the democracy you claim to defend. Let's think for a minute if you succeeded though. What would that bring for the country? Well, your key defining trait is that you're an inside girl for the military-industrial complex, working for Boeing as you do. Well, to be blunt, I think you want to start endless wars which will have no benefit for the American people. And you know what? Let's talk about this for a second, Nimrata. Feminists, like you, lie about the historical record of female leaders, and they claim that a female world order would be more peaceful. Well, the reality is the exact opposite. Women are far more hawkish than men, and they're more likely to start wars, as we've seen with the various female leaders throughout history. And I don't think you'd be an exception at all. You would be the one that proves the rule. You would be the key example sitting there in the dictionary. Because everything that goes along on your campaign trail, and if you have said along as the ambassador to the United Nations, is marked by aggressive hawkishness, by the intense desire to start wars. And you know what? I think the reason is that you're an edge fetishist, and you keep teasing us, and teasing yourself with starting World War III and a nuclear war. Well, the problem is, if you were elected, you might slip up an orgasm and start that war for us, might you? And you would release a war of unparalleled destruction. And you would make yourself the mother of 1 billion dead, and the United States a destitute nuclear wasteland. And now there's all these allegations coming across that you cheated on your spouse, and that you refuse to call him by your first name, and that you berate him, and that he's emasculated by you. Well, if all this is true, well, you're just an anchor baby Liz Truss, and maybe we'd be lucky in that case because you'd only be president for 30 or 40 days. But it only goes to show that women like you, you're copying men, and you're worse than them in every way, including in your adultery and bribery. All the negative effects of politicians, you'd just be just as full of adultery and just as few as in being bribed, but inferior in every way. But Nimrata, let's stop for a second and think about what your presidency would bring to the table for us, the American people. You, of course, pretended to be the most southern woman in the world when you ran for the governor of South Carolina. And then you ended up being the first one to tear down those Confederate monuments. And then after you ended your spree as the governor of South Carolina, all you can do now is cry and moan about how you were the victim of racism. Yet, you're such a victim when you're a millionaire. You converted to Christianity only to have a Sikh wedding. What trust is there to be had in a person like you, Nimrata? None at all, because you're a liar and a coward who has no conviction or grace. What good would an anchor baby feminist frothing at the mouth be for this country? It would mean nothing but destruction. You would invite endless more refuge from the third world into our country to disfranchise me and the rest of the American people who built it. None of these people you would bring in would support the Republican Party you lead. And even if you were the first female president, you would be known as the last Republican president and the last chance the American people had to save their country. And you know what? Let's talk about your feminist leanings. They only make everything worse because they inspire women to be horrible human beings who will do things like justify cheating on their spouses, and they'll abandon their callings to be mothers and drive down the birth rate, giving you an opening to invite this refuge from the third world, as they sit there anxious puppets of their bosses as office workers who are doing no good for this country. Yet I would be remiss to not mention that you resolutely oppose free speech, and under your presidency, this very video would be illegal. We wouldn't be able to criticize you. You would strip me and the rest of the American people of the only defense we have against the monsters like you who want to destroy our lives. That's the ability to speak the truth. You would give us over to the will of the oligarchs who made you. Your presidency at best would destroy America, and at worst would destroy the world, Nimrata. Go home.